Good morning. It's Thursday, August 20th, and let's talk self sabotage. Now, self sabotage often shows up quietly, disguised as procrastination, doubt, avoidance, or perfectionism. We tend to think of it as something we do wrong, but the truth is that self sabotage is usually a subconscious attempt to avoid discomfort or protect ourselves from perceived danger. Understanding the psychology behind these behaviors is the first steps towards rewriting them. I think the first time I realized that I have patterns that hold me back is when I learned about limiting beliefs. I had no idea that sayings I grew up hearing or thoughts I had were limiting my ability to grow and experience success, love, healing, and confidence. This was a huge eye opener for me. Now, self sabotage often stems from fear of failure, fear of success, fear of change, or fear of being seen. Sometimes we unconsciously believe we aren't ready, worthy, or capable of the things we desire. These internal stories create behaviors that keep us stuck in familiar patterns, even when those patterns are uncomfortable. I often worry that if I try something new that I will fail. I have had to relearn that I will not know if I will be successful unless I try. The biggest lesson though is even if I fail, who cares? At least I tried. Failing is just part of being human and means that I'm alive, learning, and growing. Now, comfort zones feel safe because they're predictable, even when they're limiting. Stepping outside them activates uncertainty and vulnerability, which the brain often interprets as danger. Self sabotage is often an attempt to stay within familiar territory. This is why clarity and small, steady steps can make change feel more manageable. When I am pushing outside of my comfort zone, I experience anxiety. I am so nervous. However, I found that usually once it's done, I realize it wasn't nearly as bad as my mind made it out to be. Now, self sabotage can show up in many forms: procrastination, overthinking, quitting too early, setting unrealistic expectations, or prioritizing distractions over progress. Sometimes it looks like saying yes when you mean no, or avoiding opportunities because they require vulnerability. Recognizing these patterns makes them lose their power. Many self sabotaging behaviors are rooted in childhood conditioning, past experiences, or hold on. Sorry, my dog made a weird noise and I want to make sure she was okay. They're just playing and she coughed. Where was I? We were talking about how self sabotaging behaviors are rooted in childhood experiences or past experiences, conditioning. Ultimately, they no longer serve you. So, an example is if you grew up believing success was dangerous, money was stressful, or stability was unpredictable, your brain learned to avoid anything associated with those triggers. These puppies are crazy. Breaking these patterns starts with rewriting the stories you tell yourself. Now, I am constantly working on my limiting beliefs and have become hyper aware of the language that I use in order to help rewire my brain to be more accepting of what God has in store for me. For instance, recently I stated, if this happens, and I was said, I rebuke the if and when this happens. It is so much more powerful to say when rather than if. Healing healing self-sabotage behaviors requires awareness, compassion, and consistent intentional actions. When you identify your triggers and respond with supportive choices, you begin rewiring old patterns. This might include journaling, setting realistic goals, creating accountability, shifting your environment, or practicing daily mindset work. Anyone want some dogs? They're tiresome. Change becomes possible when you stop punishing yourself and start understanding yourself. The biggest tool I could recommend anyone use, and we all have, to interrupt self sabotaging behaviors is awareness. It is essential we become aware of our self sabotaging behaviors, and once we are aware, we can reframe and rewire our brains to stop sabotaging ourselves. Self sabotage isn't a flaw, it's a survival response from an earlier version of yourself. When you approach it with curiosity instead of judgment, you gain the power to change it. Understanding the psychology behind your patterns allows you to make conscious choices that support your growth, your goals, and your future. Whew, that is a lot to think about, and so are these dogs. So let's just end on a positive affirmation. They have so much energy this morning. The positive affirmation for today is my life gets better every day in every way. And I love this message so much. And I know it is true. And I hope yours does too. I hope you have a great day. Talk to you soon.